Attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi everyone, my name is Renee Becker and I am the first senior mentor for Minnesota, and joining me on this call as a moderator is Mary Roberts, the first senior mentor for Georgia. And today we'd like to introduce the expert, and we'll be talking with you about the FTC judging process. And so his name is Kevin Ross, and he is the FTC World Judge Advisor. He has been doing all FIRST programs for the past 12 years and has been the Judge Advisor for the First Step Challenge for 5 years. He is from Carnation, Washington, and was a Senior Design Engineer for Microsoft Windows before becoming a full-time FIRST volunteer. So, thank you, Kevin.
Well, thank you for the welcoming introduction. So, we are going to talk today about judging for your First Tech Challenge team. I want to point out really quickly how this webinar software works. You are welcome at any time to raise your hand. There's a little raise your hand button. You can raise and lower it as you wish. You can also type questions into the questions box, and when we go around to asking questions, I may unmute you so that we can talk to you, because sometimes it's easier to have you ask the question rather than me trying to fumble through understanding what you wrote. So with that, we are also recording this, and we'll put it on the web in case your teammates would like to tune in a little bit later. Okay, so what are we talking about today? Today we are talking about judging. So I'm going to assume that some of you are new to FTC and new to judging, so I'm going to give you an overview of what happens in the judging process. We'll talk a bit about what the awards are and which awards are available. Give you some tips about getting yourself through the judging interview process, and then we'll talk a bit about each award individually and what it is that we're looking for as judges, and then we will open it up at the end for all sorts of questions and answers. Feel free to ask questions at any point. I'm not usually distracted by questions, so feel free to jump in at any time, because otherwise you'll just listen to me drone on for about an hour. I'm hoping that this will take a little less than an hour. That's what it's taken in the past. Okay, so let's get started. Let me tell you about how the judging process works for FTC. There are kind of 4 parts to FTC judging. One of them is called the formal judging interview, and that's where you'll head off and talk to the judges directly and on purpose. The other part of the judging process is called the informal pit interview, and there you'll be working away on your robot, doing your thing in your pit area, and the judges might swing by and ask you some questions and sort of poke their nose into things. The third thing is that we have a set of judges that usually are watching the matches, and so we're just kind of, watching to see which teams are doing awesome things on the field and which teams are being gracious and professional on the field. And then the fourth bit of information that the judges use, we call it the spy game, and that is just, we're just sort of watching. Okay, we'll hit each one of these here a little bit more in just a minute. So what does it look like to go to a judging interview? Well, here's a picture in case you haven't been in on one of these. You're going to bring your robot, and you're going to bring all of your team members, and you're going to end up talking to some judges. The picture I'm showing you here is from World Championships. You're likely to be in a school or a classroom or some other area. But the idea is that you guys are going to come in. The judges might be sitting down, they might be standing up, you never know, and you're going to talk about yourself. Okay? It's a very informal interview. There isn't a set list of questions or anything, and it's really just having a conversation with the judges. So for the most part, you should have about 10 minutes with the judges. What you want to do, what you want to focus on is, listen to their questions and see if you can answer them the best you can. And I think a key thing for you to understand is that the judges are really only going to know what you tell them. And so if you guys are doing something that you think is really cool, you need to come up with a way of letting the judges know about that. And it may be that you might have occasion to put together a few minutes of canned presentation, or some set talking points that you want to make sure that you convey to the judges, and that's okay. In fact, actually, judges sometimes appreciate that a little bit, that you guys have come prepared, and that bodes well for your team, is to be prepared for this. Okay. We're also hoping that you will be able to show yourselves as a team, and so it really judges well with our judges that you are able to work everybody in your team into the presentation somehow. So whether people are talking about their areas of expertise or what have you, the more people that you have talking, the more impressive your team looks. And we have seen in the past, there's been like one team spokesman who did the entire judging interview, and that this is a team sport. We want to make sure that you guys are all involved. Your mentors are allowed to come into the judging room at most of our venues, but the reality is the judges want to talk to students, not to mentors. So if your mentors are going to come in, you've got to be very clear and upfront with them that they need to be quiet and be in the corner. There is an unwritten, well, unwritten isn't the right word. There is sort of a mantra that, hey, the mentors sort of interfered and that sort of counts against you. So make sure that you can answer all your own questions and make sure your mentors can keep their mouths shut. Okay? How's that so far? Anybody got any questions? All right. So so that's kind of the basis of the formal interview, is that it's your chance to have a one-on-one session with a judging panel, and go in and talk about the stuff that you're proud of, and talk about the things that you think that your team did really well. That's how the judges find out about those things. The next main interface that you're going to end up with the judges is what we call the informal pit interview. And here, the judges are just sort of out wandering around the pits. They're probably intentionally wandering around the pits. So what they're really doing is they're gathering more information about your team. So it is in general a good thing that the judges are stopping by. That means that they have some interest in you, and they're there to collect some more information. So a key question for you: what are you ready to provide the judges? What information can you provide the judges in that informal pit interview that will help make your case and help show the judges what an awesome FTC team you are? It's perfectly valid to have a little handout to give them. It's perfectly, and you should be ready to hand those out to any team that walks up, but make sure that you've got something that is a good summary of what your team does, there in your pits. I highly recommend that whatever you hand out, and it doesn't have to be elaborate, maybe a little one-page sheet or something that when the judges go back to the judging room and start talking to the other judges who have been out seeing other teams, what is it that you can send back with that will give those judges a favorable impression of your team? And sort of like a marketing skill, really. Okay, so some cool things that we've seen in the past are little tchotchkes that are unique to your team. Little handouts or pamphlets that show your team doing its thing, or interesting things you've done in the community, interesting things that your robot does. And pictures are good. If you can have something that has pictures on it, it just helps solidify. It solidifies your team in the judges' brains, right? And that's really what you need to do, is make sure that the judges have the ability to form a connection with your team. Okay. In your pit area, organization and style sort of matter, and I think that especially in the pit area, because the judges will go out and they'll see multiple teams in a row, And they remember the ones that have, that are organized and the ones that sort of have a plan going into this. So if you're interested in really pursuing some of these judged awards, having some sort of pit decoration. Now, you'll need to check with your affiliate partner to find out how much room that you have at your event. Some events have very little pit space. World Championships, you get like a 10-foot by 8-foot pit area, right? And some of those get decorated pretty impressively. However, if your team has like blue T-shirts or T-shirts that match the robot or some other thing that sort of calls you out as a team, that's the sort of stuff that the judges remember when they get back to the room and they're trying to go, yeah, I just went out and saw 8 teams, and there was the blue team with the gold hat, right? They'll remember the blue team with the gold hat much easier than the team that had blue T-shirts, and that isn't really much of a clue for them to remember things. So, all right. The other thing is, if you're going to talk to the judges and try and tell them why your team is cool, it's good to be able to talk about it for several minutes if the judges are interested in asking. But the reality is that what you'd like to do is to prime them to ask you about the stuff you're proud of. And so a good way of doing that is, what's your 30-second elevator pitch? An elevator pitch, in case you've never heard that term before, is what's the summary of why I should be interested in your team? It sort of comes from the whole notion that, say one day you got on an elevator and you're looking for investors and Bill Gates is on the elevator, right? And he's headed for the 17th floor. So what is it that you can say in 30 seconds that summarizes what your team is all about, what things that your team does well, what things that makes your team stand out? How can you do that very quickly and succinctly and try and engage that person? Okay, you'll need to practice your elevator pitch because these are not easy to come up with, and it's something that if your team has sort of a here are the 3 top things that we're really good at, and here's how to explain it. If you can practice this on each other and get that elevator pitch down nice and pat, you'll find that it's way easier to talk to the judges and get them engaged in a conversation. Okay. How am I doing? Any questions so far? Okay. All right. The other thing that we're doing, there should be a set of judges that are kind of watching each of the matches that you're competing in. And this is part of the information that the judges are going to use during their deliberations. Okay. So consider what we've done so far. So far, they've talked to you in a formal interview. They've talked to you in the pits. And now they're going to do, they're also collecting information about your team by watching you play. Okay? So this is all part of the information that the judges are going to use during the deliberations. So there's nothing really you need to do on this one other than realize that the judges are going to be verifying your claims that you're making out there on the field. George has a question, it looks like. So I'm going to see if George has got a microphone. Hi, George. Do you have a microphone? Just say something.
Yeah, I got one. Can you hear me?
You got a question?
It works. Yeah, there's a lot of, seems, weight put on outreach. I just want to clarify the type of outreach because one of the things our team did this year was to support autism awareness and raise $1,000, actually more than $1,000 just this past weekend for autism. But I think FIRST is looking for us to promote FIRST as well. Can you clarify that for us?
Sure. We are interested in your team working together to do things in the community. I think it's awesome that you guys are out doing stuff with autism and other worthwhile things, and the judges will recognize that and acknowledge that. It is also true, like you've pointed out, that we're also interested in your teams going out and promoting science and technology education and the FIRST programs. That is also true. I don't want to. I couldn't tell you what the judge's subjective reaction to one over the other is going to be. We don't write. It isn't like written down somewhere that we value this more than that. But I think in general, I think they do tend to sway a little bit towards things that are science and technology based, and I say that lovingly, but definitely tell them about what the things that your team has done as a team, and it'll all get evaluated, and it is total bonus points for you to have done this. So I don't want to discount anything. Am I coming through clear on that? I may have muddled that answer.
No, I think it's what you said is sensible.
Yeah. So it's the judges will be slightly biased towards community outreach that has to do with FIRST in science and technology, but it's by no means takes precedence or anything. It's just going to be a general bias that direction. Okay.
Great, thank you.
Thanks for the question. That was a good question. All right. Okay. So let's move on to the fourth thing, which is the spy game. That's the best way I can put this. First judges in all of our programs, we love the gracious professionalism, and so I think that any time that you are gracious and professional is awesome, and we hear about it. We see it. We hear about it from referees. We hear about it from volunteers. We hear about it from other teams, actually, most often. So I think that your attitudes and actions, just as they are important in life and happiness, they're also important in judging. So I think that it really behooves your team to be gracious and professional at all times. I don't want to make it sound like we're covertly spying on you, but we are watching and we are hearing, and so best gracious professionalism at an event works best, right? Okay, so just in review, I'm going to go. So we've got the formal interviews, we've got the informal interviews at your pits, we've got match observations, and we also have anecdotal information. I call it the spy game, right? And all of that factors into what it is that the judges are looking at when they're trying to evaluate your team for awards. Okay. Hey, what are the awards anyway? That's always a great question. So we have 6 awards in FTC, and we'll go through each one of these in detail. So I'm not going to rattle these off just yet, but there are a lot of awards to consider. Okay, and then there's some optional awards. Promote and Compass are 2 of them, and then there are also, like I say, we love to hand out the awards. We also have these things called Judges Awards for teams who've just done something awesome that don't necessarily fit into one of the other categories. Okay, I want to point out though that these, especially the FTC awards, are there for a reason. Okay, each one of our awards identifies and celebrates one of the goals of the program, and I think that's an important thing for you to realize, is that we're giving you awards for doing things that we feel are important for a high quality FIRST team to strive to achieve. So they aren't just random awards. These are really important to us. Okay. So if you can understand that and try and see what the program goals are, that is the way to be a successful FTC team. Okay, and I put this warning on here. There is no checklist. We really are looking for teams who are great FTC teams, and those are the teams who almost always end up with winning the awards. We're not necessarily looking for teams who explicitly went out to win this particular award, okay? And it's obvious to the judges when that happens. So, you know, we will give you immense credit in the award deliberations for, you know, having pursued one of the program goals. But the reality is what we're really looking for you to do is to chase the program goals because they are our goals and not because you're going to win an award. And I think that's a better way to succeed at actually getting the award. I hope that made sense. Okay. Any questions? Any other questions at the moment? Okay. So a few tips for doing better. Do your best to be part of the FTC community, part of the FIRST community, and just be a great FTC team. It's easy to give out awards to teams who are obviously take this to heart and are having fun and being great FTC teams. Okay. The other really big tip is there are sections in the rules about awards, and there are sections in the rules about the notebook. Read them. The really good teams can almost recite those things by heart. They know what the program goals are. They know what the judging criteria are, and it isn't necessarily that they're rushing down to make sure that they can check something off on every one of those. But on the other hand, they also know what the judges are looking for because of the criteria, and they're able to articulate their accomplishments in relationship to those criteria. And I think that's an important thing to do. Okay. So be able to articulate your successes is really important, and because you need to tell us what it is that you've done. We'll try and seek out what you've done, but the reality is that everything we know about your team really is coming from you. Okay, and it's 100% okay to be prepared and be ready to tell us these things and be able to convey this stuff to us. Even if you've actually put together a little bit of presentation to do it, we're impressed by that. It means that you guys are thinking about it and you're showing us that there's some effort. Okay. The other key is this really is a team sport. There are a lot of outstanding FTC teams that have one or two students who built the robot, and they bring 7 or 8 other students who are just sort of along for the ride. And you can tell it when you talk about in the awards, when we're doing the deliberations. This comes up a lot. Is that, yeah, boy, this team is really awesome, but it's obvious that there was only 1 or 2 kids actually heavily involved. Everybody else was a tag along. Okay, so and again, that's one of our program goals. We want you to be a team. We want you to work together as a group and succeed as a group. There's Brian has asked a very good question. Brian, I'm going to unmute you here for a sec. Hi, Brian, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so actually you sort of just answered my question. I was asking if it's better with respect to teamwork if all the kids get to touch on everything, or to have some kids sort of specialized in areas, but that might restrict them. They might get less time kind of doing the robot stuff, if you will.
And so, and you've asked a very astute question, and I have a very slippery answer for you. The idea is that it's okay that you've got people who specialized in things, and that's part of being a team. And if you can articulate the fact that, oh yeah, Zach and Andrew did a lot of the work building the robot, and Kendall and another girl did a lot of things on the outreach, and another I'm sorry, I'm using the names off the kids off of my team. And another couple of kids, focused on the software, and it's fine to break things up like that. So it is a team sport, it is the case that you will subdivide, and if you can tell us that that was part of your plan and this is how it was done, that's awesome.
Okay.
Having one student show up and be the person who did the design, the hardware, the software, arranged the community outreach, did the budget and the fundraising, and nobody else really speaks up, that's where it's less impressive. That make sense?
Got it. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Okay, great. I'm going to go back to George here. Hi, George.
Hi, I think you just answered my question with the previous question.
Oh, outstanding. Okay, there we go. And I'm going to come down. I guess it's Ron or Ronald. Hi, you there? Ooh, that was a cool sound. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So you had a question?
Yeah, I had a question about.
You might need to turn your volume down just slightly.
All right.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect.
All right. One of the questions we had with the notebook and the role of the engineering notebook.
Yes. I'm looking at it. It is 2 slides away. Can I get back to you then?
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Sounds good. All right. Any other questions so far? Okay. So I think another thing that, as your team matures and gets into doing other things, you'll find that FIRST is actually much more than just about the robot. We appreciate the robot. We love the robot. I'm a nerd at heart. But the reality is that this is really intended to be a team activity and a way for students to learn how to work together with teams, learn how to work together with their community. So I think that's something that the really outstanding teams, the ones that win the Inspire Award, those teams are the ones that sort of realize that it isn't just about the robot. Rookie teams, first-year teams, a lot of them will focus on the robot, and we're fine with that, really honestly. We're good with it. But, for teams who have been around for a little bit longer, we're sort of hoping that and expecting that you will embrace sort of the FIRST philosophy of trying to bring other people into your science and technology community and those sorts of things. So we're really impressed by teams that have more of a balanced approach rather than just focusing on building a awesome robot. Okay. So and then the last one, of course, and you'll hear me say this over and over and over. Gracious professional is the bomb. That's the big one for us. And honestly, there's nothing more impressive to the judges than a team who is in last place, who is having an awful day with the robot, is still out there helping other teams, being gracious and professional, cheering other teams, and just being a great alliance partner and being really embracing the whole gracious professional attitude. And it really does make a huge impression on the judges. The corollary to that, if you're out there doing really extraordinarily well, but you're being a bit snotty on the field and not being very nice in the pits, getting labeled as ungracious and professional will take you off of just about every judge's list of considerations. So, and we've seen it time after time after time where teams who otherwise would have been just awesome for a lot of awards get labeled as ungracious and professional, and they honestly just sink like rocks during the deliberations because the judges take the gracious professionalism really seriously. There you go. That's the big one. Okay, let's talk a little bit about each of the awards. I'm going to show you the award slide again. Think, Motivate, Connect, PTC Design, Rockwell Collins Innovate, and the Inspire Award. These are our main awards. And like I said before, we have a couple of other awesome awards, the Promote Award and the Compass Award. They are optional at regionals. We do award them for sure at World Championships. You can look those up in the manual. I'm probably not going to cover too much of Promote and Compass or Judged Awards. Okay. The Think Award. So for each one of these awards, I want to tell you what the program goal is in general, and then a little bit of details about what things that you need to know about that award. So the Think Award, we are looking for you to communicate to others the amazing things that you have done as a team. And we are using the engineering notebook as the vehicle for you to keep that in mind, and to be able to or to be able to organize your thoughts and communicate them to others, specifically the judges, and and other things that you might do with your engineering notebook. And I'll talk about that in a sec. And if I forget to tell you about somebody's book, somebody needs to remind me. Okay? So there is a section in the manual, and it's devoted to the notebook, and you should read that section because it's an important section. It'll tell you about the format and sort of the content and those sorts of things. The notebook is how you are going to communicate to the judges, and how the judges are going to communicate to the other judges. Because remember, events, especially big ones, have multiple judging panels, and you will get seen by one judging panel and may end up sort of in consideration with judges from a different panel on the same award. And the more information that can be seen in your notebook by the other judges helps your case. If on the for example, judging panel A may walk in and say, "Wow, this team really thought through a lot of things. They told us that they did the math on how to lift the rings all the way up and all this other really cool stuff." When it comes down to the deliberations, if that stuff can also be found in your engineering notebook, it gives the other judges confidence in Judge Panel A's conclusions. Okay, so I think that don't underestimate the power of your notebook. Okay, now it is required for several of the other awards, and you need to check the rules about that. And be very aware of the fact that it isn't optional. You will not win the Inspire Award, the PTC Design Award, the Rockwell Collins Innovate Award without having an engineering notebook. You will not even be considered. So this is a mandatory section for two good reasons. One is it's one of our program goals, and the other is that it's part of the information that we use to deliberate those other awards. Okay, and I'm going to point this out, and I believe this is highlighted in the judges or in the notebook section of the rules. Your notebook is likely to be long, and I will be upfront and honest with you. The judges will not read the entire notebook. There's no way for us to do that in a reasonable amount of time. So what we want you to do is throw in some page markers. You know those little Post-it, like they're Post-it page markers with little tabs on them, colored tabs. Take 6 or 8 pages or 10 pages that you're proud of in your notebook and flag those. The judges will look at those. That's sort of your indication. Please look here, right? Now, be forewarned, that isn't not the only place the judges are going to look. They are going to also sort of randomly spot check and read other areas of your notebook. So you can't just put in a bunch of blank pages with markers every now and then. We've seen that in the past. It doesn't work. So we really do want you to keep up with your engineering notebook. Okay, and what we're looking for on those pages are things that you think your team did well, things that you believe will make your team stand out in the judge's mind, and things that show us the math, show us the process that you went through, show us things that you did, outreach in the community, those sorts of things. Again, all of this is information that the judges need. I am going to jump over here and answer a couple of questions because I've got quite a few. I'm going to start with George again. Hi, George.
Hi. I got a big question about the engineering notebooks. Actually, two questions. Let's break it down. One of them is, have you ever seen a successful electronic engineering notebook, and how is that maintained? The second question I have is, I have a really large team. This year we're fortunate enough to have come up with enough money to run more than one robot, so we'll ultimately have technically, I think, 4 teams. But we still embrace gracious professionalism, and we share a lot of ideas. We brainstorm together. We think things through together. We use the whiteboard in the room a lot together to just benefit from each other's ideas and help each other along. Now, trying to document that stuff, mostly the best way we can do it is with a digital camera, and then paste that into a notebook. But I've never really seen or heard of a good way to maintain an electronic notebook, which seems the most practical for that kind of large group participation. So,
yes.
So just to recap, I'm sorry, real quick, just to recap. One is, do you know of or have you seen any really successful electronic notebooks? And 2 is, what would you recommend for a large team such as mine?
Right. Okay. So yes, we have seen successful notebooks that were created on a computer, and we are actively. I don't think we're going to do it this year, but and I won't tell you for sure, but we are sort of leaning that direction for the future because for all the reasons you've just cited, is that when you have multiple people working on the same thing, it sometimes will be easier. Okay, so someday we may get there. The second half of your question is, you've got a large team, or actually it sounds like you have 4 teams who work very closely in concert with each other.
Now we do, yes.
Yeah, so that's fine, and I would highlight on one of your pages, and in fact you should do this in all 4 of your notebooks, that we work closely together with these 4 teams. And if you've done that, when it comes time for the judges to sort of evaluate your notebook, they understand what's going on, and you didn't just download the Cliff Notes version of a notebook from somewhere, because you will end up reusing a great deal of that content, and that's fine. We don't have a problem with that. I would not submit 4 duplicate notebooks. We do notice that. So we're hoping that each team will keep their own notebook and be able to contribute things that are unique to their team. And those are some of the things that they'll need to call out on their 6 to 10 favorite pages. Is here's where we diverged.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay. So the opposite of that story that I just told you, and this happened this year at World Championships, is we had 2 teams who, in essence, built identical robots. And they did identical math, and they were from the same school. And the reality is that since they didn't really call it out, and they didn't actually win an award, and part of that discussion was that they never really said that they were working closely with the other team, and their notebooks were nearly identical, and the judges kind of had an issue with that. And there is not a rubric, there's no set rules to any of this, so the whole thing is really subjective with the judges. But it was the case that they did not end up with neither team won the Think Award or the Inspire Award, in large part due to what they did with their notebook. They also didn't do well on the very well on the Innovative Design Award and or the Rockwell Collins Innovate Award, mostly because they were up for it, but then they realized, oh, wait a sec, there are 2 identical robots. They kind of shot themselves in the foot a little bit there. because it wasn't in they judges, and I have nothing to do with this. I just sit and listen to the judges deliberate it, and they decided that, since they built the exact same robot, it's not really unique, is it? It's not innovative, even though it was pretty innovative design. So anyway,
okay.
All subjective with the judges. That make sense?
Yeah, I think it does.
Okay. Yeah. So and you know, you've pointed out something, and this is relatively new for us. The idea that there are now many teams who are part of clusters of teams. It's becoming very prevalent and very common. So we are very much aware of that there are many places where teams work very closely together and in fact are in the same classroom for the most of the time. So a lot of their material ends up being duplicate. So it isn't a ding against you. However, I think you know, if that just means that you need to do a little extra work in pointing out the things that make your team unique.
Okay.
Okay. I've got a whole slew of questions actually coming here, so I'm going to move down here to Neil Sullivan. And Neil, do you have a microphone? Do you think you have a microphone, Neil?
Yeah, I do have one. I do have one actually.
Oh, yeah, okay, we can hear you.
Sorry if it's...
no worries. So what do you got?
What happens if different teams use the same basic base for a robot? Like our teams use Omni Wheels, the Omni Wheels template. What happens then? Would that be considered like using the same robot or different?
Well, no, yeah, and you will not be the only team using Omni Wheels. Turns out there will be lots of them. So that's fine. And actually, it turns out that there are only so many ways you can configure a robot base itself. I think that if you've, in essence, just completely duplicated the entire design with maybe one or two minor little changes, that wouldn't be considered unique. But having something like a Omni Wheels or holonomic drive, there's only so many ways you can configure that, and the judges are aware of that. So that's okay. And there's really actually nothing wrong with finding a good design and duplicating it. You are likely not to judge terribly well on the Innovate Award, potentially. And again, this is really subjective. And what ends up happening is that the judges are just going to go, well, they did something really unique and innovative here. It's just that 4 or 5 teams replicated it, and we just saw those other 4 or 5 teams. Does that make sense?
Mm. So how do you call it as your own idea? Is it the engineering notebook that tells of that, or? Sure.
Well, and you got to, if you've done something that's unique, show the judges, and make sure it's unique. We see a lot of robots. Local events, maybe not as much, but I'll be honest with you. We're going to see 128 robots at World Championships. So if you walk in using Omni Wheels, I'm picking on your Omni Wheels, but you are not going to be the only one using Omni Wheels, so that really isn't terribly unique. Now, if you do something very unique with the Omni Wheels, that's a different story, right? If you've come up with some new or
we had a base, a basic base. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I don't think I described it well enough.
Yeah.
We use the same base with the Omni Wheels. It has a certain way of being set up, and that all 4 teams are basically trying to use the basic base with the wheels set up like that.
Okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, and we're cool with it. It may not end up qualifying as a innovative design, or it may or may not. I don't know. I haven't seen it. But if it's something that the judges see 4 or 5 implementations of at the same event, they're probably, honestly, less likely to consider that specific part of your robot to be unique. Now, it may be the case that there's something else that you've diverged on, and maybe you have a really cool gripper and the other teams don't, and your cool gripper does something unique, you know, that you could still get it for that. But yeah, it's hard to say. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes complete sense.
It's all subjective. All of the judging in FTC is subjective. There isn't a rubric or a score sheet or a set list of checklist criteria that the judges are going after. It's how you told your story and what else they have seen, what else they're evaluating. So it's kind of hard for me to tell you in a specific example because your judges may vary.
All right.
Thanks for your question.
Makes sense.
All right, we got one more. Zach Wimmer. I'm going to see if you have a microphone. Hi, Zach.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. I'm on George's team, so like he said, we have multiple sister teams. And my question is, since we do work like in the same room, and then we have a lot of the same ideas, but not necessarily that. It's the fact that since maybe we go to a competition, our robot and our sister team's robot, and our sister team does better than us, and we decide that we want to adopt theirs, then we're not redesigning the entire thing. We are essentially taking the best of theirs and putting it on ours. Is there any, like, we wouldn't show that in our engineering notebook. Would that be a problem, or should we essentially make a note saying that we got the design from our sister team?
Oh, well, I would. I put what you did in the engineering notebook, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with going, hey, several things were prototyped and tried, right? And our larger team, our sister team, came up with something that worked really well. So we decided to adopt that strategy, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that at all.
And would we have to put in like if they went through multiple prototyping stages, we wouldn't have to put any of those in, just the final, correct?
I would have a tough time answering that. It's going to depend on what your judges think of it and how you articulate it. So I don't want to give you a yes no on that one. It depends on how it's presented and exactly what it was that you're doing. I'm going to wiggle my way out of that answer. You can hear me being very wishy-washy on it just because I don't know the details. I don't want you to feel like you just got an okay for me to do something. I think in general, I would explain in your notebook and be ready to explain to the judges exactly what it was that you did. I think that is 100% fine. Some teams will go to multiple events and they'll end up seeing things, or they'll take their robot to one event and they know that they're going to have to modify it to compete more effectively with what they saw. So they get a couple of weeks before their next event and they know they're going to have to compete against that same team again. So they may drastically change their design. And I think it's 100% okay to do that, and it shows adaptability, and it shows that you guys are iteratively designing and building this thing. So there's nothing really wrong with what you've told me. I just don't want to leave you with the impression of you should do this or shouldn't do that, because I could be wrong, because your judges may have a different opinion than I do. Did I wiggle my way out of that answer pretty well? How'd you like it?
Yeah, it was pretty obscure. Thanks.
Thank you so very much. I guess I don't have a specific answer for you on that one. Sorry.
It's fine.
All right, cool. Thanks, Zach. All right, we've got Brian Tucker is asking what program would I recommend if they want to go electronic. I think Word would be fine. Things that I've seen printouts from Windchill, which is the collaboration tool from PTC. I have seen Word documents. I have seen a printouts of blogs
from the internet. I have seen things done in Publisher. You know, you're supposed to be trying to keep a running diary or running blog sort of format. If you look in the rules, we're kind of interested in you're keeping track of how things evolved and telling the story of how you proceeded through the season. So anything that you can make in that sort of format is great. I think that the one downside to the electronic versions is people have a tendency to go back and edit or remove information that's no longer valid. And the judges kind of like to see how things evolved. So that's my only warning to you about doing this electronically is it's easy to delete or revise things. And we kind of, I would recommend not doing that, going back and revising too much, but rather, you know, keep the thing going, keep the thing rolling, and, you know, document the fact that, you know, we've changed our mind on this, or we've reworked the math to make something a little bit different. Okay? Did that make sense to you, Brian? I hope so. Okay. Will the judges look at the engineering notebook at every competition? Jessica, yes. Yes, star. Everywhere that you're judged, they will end up looking at your engineering notebook again. Now, I say yes, star, because if you're in Florida, Mary, I saw you on here. Hey, Mary, I'm about to unmute you. I believe that's you anyway. Is that you, Mary? Hang on a sec.
Me?
Hi, Mary.
I'm here.
Oh, so this is Mary Lee. She is the affiliate partner manager from First. And I was just going to try and answer Jessica's basic question will the judges look at engineering notebook at every competition? And the general answer is yes. However, Florida is doing something different, and there's one other state. Do you remember who it was?
Actually, are you referring to the meets?
Oh, yeah. So it's Florida, Washington, and there's one other.
There were actually 5.
Oh,
there's yourself, Washington,
yeah,
St. Louis, New Jersey, Florida.
Okay, those are the states I couldn't remember. So, so Jessica, if you're in one of those states, you'll need to check with your affiliate partner or check with your local rules. There's a couple of pilot projects happening across the country, and so you'll need to check with them. If you're otherwise just going to a qualifier that has judging, they will look at your notebook every time. Did that make sense? I'm sorry that might have been a confusing answer. Let me know. Thanks, Mary. I'm going to mute you again.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to move off of the Think Award here. I think I've got everybody. Neil is asking. Okay, so the notebooks do need to come in printed. We currently don't have the facility for dealing with electronic things. Unless you're in one of those above states, then you'll need to check with your affiliate partner. But the reality is that we don't want you to bring in your stuff electronically. The reason is that we haven't gotten all of the details worked out on how to do the electronic versions of things. So whatever electronic mechanism that you're using to create your Think Award presentation needs to come out on paper in a binder, okay? And you really, really, really want to put the team number on the binder of the book, or I'm sorry, on the binding of the book, or on the back of the book. Put your team number out there, okay? All right. If you really want to impress the judges, however, And this is new, and this think about making a summary page that gives them a roadmap into your document. It might be a page or two long. You're free to format this however you wish. I would flag it. I would put it very, very close to the beginning of your book, and I would say, you know, we're very proud of our robot design, you know, and make this like a paragraph long. So you might end up with 2 pages. You might have a section for each one of these awards, and send us to places in your notebook that you think are relevant. I think the judges may or may not be impressed by that. This is not an official requirement. This is just my observation from years past that teams that did this sort of thing, it was very much appreciated by the judges. So your mileage will entirely vary. So, okay, let's go to the next award. So the Motivate Award is an award that, so our program goal here, you guys are doing something really awesome. You are building something that moves. 99.97% of the rest of the population of this planet will never do what you're going to do in this program. And so we are hoping that you'll recognize that, and that we really hope that you guys are going to be proud and of what you've accomplished. And we you know, we would love to have you show some spirit, feel very happy and confident and proud of the amazing things that you've done, and have a good time. And so that is our idea behind the Motivator Award. This isn't really, you know, who's the best cheerleader award. There's much more that goes into it than that. And it's obvious when we talk to teams, when we see teams doing their thing out on the field, when we see teams doing things in the stands, and basically having a good time. Okay, so do not equivalate. This isn't necessarily just the Team Spirit Award, although that has a lot to do with it. But we're looking for teams who feel good about themselves and are just really comfortable with the things that they've accomplished. And we'd like, you know, so T-shirts are awesome. Looking good and looking like a cohesive unit is awesome. You know, that's sort of the basis of the Motivate Award. Okay. Any questions about Motivate? Well done. Let's go to the next one. All right. So the Connect Award, we want you to be part of your community and be a good partner in your community. And so we celebrate teams that are able to go out in the community, do community outreach, show the other people what you're doing. And also by going out and connecting with resources that could help you, whether it be, you know, mentors, community leaders, the city council. Maybe you're going to 3rd grade classes and 4th grade classes and showing them what you've done. Maybe you're helping with FLL teams and coaching an FLL team, or going out and starting new FTC teams, working well with FRC teams to do STEM-related outreach, those sorts of things. And so the award-winning Connect teams are usually pretty active, and I think it's a really great way for your students to be able to go out and talk to people, feel good about what they've done, to get feedback on what it is that they've done, and find out just how valued you are in the community and how excited people are to see you guys doing something really amazing. Okay. Make sure and document this sort of stuff in your notebook. If you end up with newspaper clippings or pictures or all those sorts of things sort of help. But at the bare minimum, be sure and let us know the things that you've accomplished during the year. Okay. Could you, Neil's asking, can we start a feed on Facebook or create a network to show what we have done? I think that's awesome, and I think if it was me, I would encourage you to do that. The sticky part of that, Neil, is that most of our events are done in high schools or middle schools or colleges, and the reality is we can never reliably depend on the judges having internet access.
So if you're only documenting these things in an electronic form on the web, as much as I believe that that's a great way to do it, the problem is that there's no way for the judges to pull that up. So just keep that in mind. Neil just raised his hand, so I'm going to turn on your mic. Hi, Neil.
Yeah, hi. I still think we should still stick in the notebook, obviously, because that's what it says on the page. But I was just saying of like doing that and still showing you, like printing out the page and what it looks like, or showing our feed on Facebook and sticking that in the notebook. Because I understand from my last question or my last raising my hand that we don't have the capabilities yet of being able to like take stuff off the internet or look at stuff off the internet so far.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, no, I think that's a great idea. If you want to come in and use as part of your documentation, some shots of your Facebook page or whatever else you end up coming up with, I think that's great. Good idea.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, Neil. All right, so let's go to the next award here. This is the PTC Design Award. The goal here is for you to be able to consider, as you're putting your robot together, sort of more overreaching design elements in something that's called industrial design. And part of the award is using the tools that an industrial designer, or actually most engineers, would end up using, and that's some sort of CAD program. It's a way to experiment and to prototype and to come up with ways of communicating what your design is going to end up looking like. Okay? Now, let me tell you what industrial design is, because it isn't. Industrial design always sounds like you're going to be, building smokestacks and large piping, but actually isn't what industrial designers do. Industrial designers are it's a form and function thing, and so it's the people who not only figure out how something works and how the user is going to interact with it, but also how it feels and how it looks, and that helps people come up, with an emotional connection or an aesthetic connection to the devices that they're using. Great examples of this are like the iPhone, or if you've ever held an older Hewlett-Packard calculator in your hand. They're very, very solid. The industrial design of those is really impressive, because I just spent $900 on a calculator, but when you hold it in your hand, it's like the Rolls-Royce of calculators, right? Other great industrial design where form follows function are things like the Microsoft mouse or the Xbox controller. These were there was hundreds of prototypes and a lot of work put into how these things feel, right? And you see, and it isn't just in consumer electronics, right? Great industrial design are like the new Camaro and Mustang and Challenger cars, right? These are cars that cost a little more, and they're trying to appeal to guys like me with a little bit of gray hair who grew up with these cars. And when you look at for example, the Mustang, the current Mustang, it's a car. If without industrial design, we'd all be driving either a box that's because you can put a lot of stuff in it, or we'd be driving something so aerodynamic it sort of looks like a vitamin pill or suppository or something. And it's not attractive to drive. Whereas the Mustang still has four wheels, and but the industrial designers that worked on that car really made it look cool and made it look nostalgic for guys like me who remember the original Mustang, and it just creates this emotional attachment to something that is otherwise really just a car with four wheels and a steering wheel, and bucket seats and stuff. So that's what industrial design is. We're looking for you to be able to sort of model these things, to use the CAD tools to learn how to communicate your designs and to prototype your designs. And so this is a great award, and I think it's an important award. It gets you using the tools of industry, and this is one of the awards that has to be documented in your notebook. We want to see your CAD drawings. We want to hear about the things that you did in order to get that all working. I'm going to go back to Gavin, who's got a question. Hi, Gavin.
Hello?
Hi, Gavin. Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, my question is the AutoCAD at Jamaica College. We use the AutoCAD software to digitize our design, and I want to know if it is needed or necessary for us to do a digitization of every single thing, or should we only do one for the final robot?
Good question. So if I can restate your question, you're asking, do you need to show all of the iterations, all of the steps that you did in your CAD design, or can you just publish the final version? Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
If it was my team, I would tell them if you're using the CAD tools in the beginning and are using it to do some of the prototyping and some of the intermediate steps, I would print out major changes along the way to show that you were actually prototyping and designing in the CAD program as the season progressed.
Okay.
Does that make sense? You
Yeah,
don't have
so
to.
like,
You don't have to show us each individual little part and each individual little nut and bolt that you've drawn. The fact that you've got that you're showing us assemblies is great. Does that make sense?
yeah, because what we did last year was we only did the final product, but last year we only did the final product, the final robot we decided to use, but it was a big argument if we should actually do maybe as we go along or every robot we actually build, because we have various prototypes, but it's not very easy to do a detailed AutoCAD of a robot every time we come for a design. So that's why I would just stick with the final design. That's what we did last year.
And that's fine. And if you've modeled things, and honestly, nobody sits down, does an entire complete design, builds a prototype, and then does a revision. And actually, if you can look online, it's actually let me show you something that is. Let's see. Let's see here, real quick. Max's Little Robo Shop. This is a friend of mine who is one of the best robot builders in the country. And if you were to look at, for example, his, he's got this robot, and I'm doing this from memory, and I apologize if this doesn't end up working, but he's got all of his intermediate drawings up here. Like here, for example, he's building this robot, and this is what he started with, is the rat. And so his designs, he'll have a few parts that and mechanisms, but he doesn't really have the entire thing designed. And if you look through here, you'll find various stages of, he'll create up a little part and try it as a prototype, but it isn't finished to detail. And somewhere on here, you'll also find volumetric studies, which is, he even started with a very basic set of squares and blocks just to see how the thing fits together. So that's fine, and especially if you're prototyping little mechanisms just to try out, definitely stick those in there. It really improves your case. Make sense?
Oh, yeah, thanks.
Good question, Gavin. All right. So that is the PTZ Design Award. I think that this award usually goes to teams who, the robot not only functions well, but it looks good as well. Okay, and I think one of the key things that we're looking for to make that happen is that you've tried you've made a serious attempt at using the tools of that trade. Okay, so the Rockwell Collins Innovate Award. And the goal here is that we would like to, we want you to take some risks. We want you to take some calculated risks, and we want you to stretch yourself to try and come up with a very innovative mechanism to solve one of the problems associated with playing in the game. Okay? Now, this is very broad, and so you need to be sure that, you know, some people do a great job with something in software and sensors. Other teams come up with really unique sweep mechanisms or arm lifting mechanisms. You need to be able to point out to the judges the unique things that you think you've come up with on your robot. Okay, and remember that some of the judges are technical, some of them are not, and it's very possible for them to go, "Ooh, that's shiny," right? Unless you tell them, they may not recognize the fact that that shiny thing is totally awesome, and here's why. So that is your job. Your job is to make sure to both flag it in your notebook and to be sure that the judges understand just how cool of a thing you've done here and how unique it is. Okay? Make sense? All right. Let's talk about the big award. This is the Inspire Award. The Inspire Award is sort of the grand champion of your event. And what we're looking for is a team that does a good job in all of the program goals. And so we're looking for your performance overall as an FTC team. We want to hold you up as the model FTC team for everybody else to emulate. So that means that you've taken, taken the time to be an awesome team. You've done the work to do some community outreach. You've done a good job at most everything else that we've asked you to do. You may not be perfect in everything, but we're looking for the team who, overall just seems to have done an outstanding job. So you'll find that Inspire Award winners are oftentimes nominees in one or more of the other categories. Usually 2 or more of the other categories, really. They are gracious and professional is really important to this. Part of the score is actually, we also expect your robot to do well, because our hope is that by doing a good job at the Design Award and the Connect Award, or I'm sorry, at the Design Award and the Innovate Award and the Think Award, that you should, in theory, be fairly competitive on the field. And you have to provide a notebook. So, because that's part of the Think Award. So if you're planning on trying to go for the Inspire Award, you really do have to do that engineering notebook, okay? Winners of this are always gracious and professional. So there you go. Gracious and professional is just really important in all of the first programs. Okay. All right. So if I was going to summarize this entire presentation I just gave you, I've got it down to these 4 things. You need to be prepared to tell the judges about your team. I would practice this. You need to take some time. Oh, before I get down this list, I apologize. I was supposed to go answer Paul's question. Paul, I'm going to unmute you. Hi, Paul. I can hear you.
Nice. Is it possible for a team to win more than 1 award?
Thank you very much. There's this list of awards. It turns out, and I'm going to mute you again here, Paul. Well, actually, I'll leave you on. Okay. Everybody wants to win the Inspire Award. That's the best award, because that's like you're off to the next level of competition based on that. We do tend to spread the love around a little bit. So, for example, if you were up for multiple awards, we will give you the one that we felt you were most deserving of. But we also may give you, but you'll only win one of these awards, okay? One of these judged awards. Does that make sense, Paul?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So, yes, that was a great question. Thanks for asking that one. Okay. All right. So, be able to take some time and work with your team, and you guys should have a very honest discussion. What is it that we did well? What is it that, what is it that we're going to tell the judges, and what is it that we can substantiate? Okay? I think a cohesive appearance is also very important. It's much easier for me as a judge to subjectively remember your team if you guys have some sort of cohesive appearance, and especially when your cohesive appearance somehow relates to your robot or at least your pit area. So these things are important because the judges are going to form an emotional bond with your team, and anything you can do to help me remember your team is in your favor. Here is a huge one, and I will spend a couple of minutes on this one. Be honest when you're talking to the judges. Here's what happens. Inevitably, we'll interview your team, and during the interview, the formal interview, someone will say, "Oh yeah, and we do this amazing thing in autonomous mode. It works every time. It's really impressive, and we're really, really proud of that." And you'll go on to tell us about all of the neat things that your robot does in autonomous mode. A little bit later, we'll be out on the field, and the match observers will note that the robot never actually worked in autonomous mode, and in fact the wheel fell off or something, right? And so you kind of need to be as honest as you can. It's very, very difficult to keep to keep an embellished story intact when you're going to end up having multiple people talking about it and multiple people evaluating it. So we're not trying to catch you in a lie, and let me bring that out right off top. It's not, the judges are actually on your side. They are out there, and they are going to be your advocates because we are amazed at what you're doing. And so it isn't like, we got out there and we said, "Oh, got him, we caught him in a lie," right? That isn't what we're doing. However, when it comes time to deliberations, if we have contradicting sets of information, for example, one of your teammates said that, the robot did this 100% reliably, and a little bit later we end up swinging by the pits again and talk to somebody else, and they say, "Yeah, it works every now and then." We're not sure what to do with it. There's contradiction, there's doubt. So honesty is by far the best policy because you don't have to work at it and keep the story straight, okay? Everybody embellishes their resume a little bit, and that's fine. Everybody understands that. But, be as honest as you can, and it just makes your team and your story very coherent. Telling us something that is blatantly incorrect would not be gracious and professional, and it's pretty much a deal killer. So you are high school students. You are doing something amazing, something complex. Not everything goes right every time. The judges are 100% aware of that. And actually, honestly, we sort of wonder a little bit sometimes when your team is a little bit too rosy and everything works perfectly and nothing ever goes wrong, okay? So the other key thing about judging is we're going to be with you, during the day a couple of times. Stressed out teams don't perform well. So have fun, relax. Don't stress out about the judging. This isn't really that big a deal, okay? And just be yourselves. And, stressed out people are not, it's easy to tell when somebody's totally stressed out about something, and you don't necessarily judge all that well. So, realize that the judges are not there to be judgmental. The judges are there to hear your story, to celebrate your story, to acknowledge your story, and to go back and tell it to another group of people. And we really, really do want you to do well, and we really want to be on your side. So that is how the judging works in the First Tech Challenge. Okay, so that is pretty straightforward. I have actually now reached the end of my slides, and I apologize I went a little longer than I thought I was going to, but there were some great questions asked. I'm now willing to entertain any questions you guys might have. Thank you, Brian. Brian says this is great. Thank you. The video will be uploaded, Gavin. As soon as the recording stops, it takes me about
15, 20 minutes, and then it will be on YouTube, and however long it takes me to upload it to YouTube. I'm going to send the link to our hosts. Renee, I'm going to let you chime in here. Where is it that they are going to be able to find the link to this? Do you know?
Renee is actually had to drop off. This is Mary. On the FTC Ask a Expert page, there's some past calls there, and I believe that's where they will find it. Also, this Thursday we have a Samantha call, and next week we have a software basics and a team strategy at events call, so that you guys know that. Okay, so it is going to be here. So if you go to the FTC page under Team Resources, Ask an Expert, and it looks like we'll probably just stick it right here. Is that right, Mary? Do we know? I believe that's where they'll find it. I've only done phone calls myself personally as a senior mentor, so I could be speaking, incorrectly, but I do believe that they can put your PowerPoint here. I don't know if we'll have the full webinar, but for sure, look back on that page, the Ask an Expert page, because that's the easiest way to know that if it's there. All right, teams, and the other things that I will do for you in case you want to send this to somebody tonight, so it'll be up there on the Ask Experts call. If you go to firstwa.org, this is my website, Washington First Robotics, look under FTC downloads. There will be a link to it right here as soon as it gets uploaded. I would expect that to be in about an hour. Does that make sense? Oh, and Mary's going to say something. Hi, Mary.
Kevin, thank you very much. It was very informative. We will upload this recording onto the FIRST website tomorrow morning. Oh, yay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Mary. Thank you. All right. Well, with that, I'm going to go ahead and end the recording. I will hang out here for a couple of minutes if you guys have any other questions you want to ask. Have a great season. This is a fun program. This is an outstanding program, and you're going to learn a lot. So we're really excited that you're part of the FIRST community and took the time to get to know the judging process a little better. With that, I'll wish you a good night.